Hello and welcome to Mile High Reefers. I'm Scott Anderson, and in today's video, we're going to look at how much all of the stuff in my tank costs. So the livestock, the rock, the water, all the stuff that makes it pretty.
So one of the first things you're going to notice is this tank is full of water. And believe it or not, all of that water is pretty expensive. My total system's water volume is about 450 gallons. Meaning that to fill up all the water I use, I'm going to need 2 boxes of Reef crystals. And on Foster's and Smith, I can usually get those about $50 a piece with free shipping, which is a pretty good deal. So, just to fill this thing with water, I'm looking at $100. So then, I've got rock. And I've got a lot of rock. So I've basically bought my rock in 4 different purchases. So the first purchase is when I did my 29-gallon tank, and I bought real high-end Tonga live rock. And I bought about 30 pounds of it, and it was about $280 for all of that rock. So that's a lot of money, but it was beautiful rock, and it was a small tank, and it worked great. So then when I did my 90-gallon, I needed more rock. So I bought some dry rock, some carob sea, really great rock. And it was about 45 pounds of rock for $70, somewhere in that range. So that's really cheap, but there's another $70. And then when I did my 210 tank, I needed even more rock. So I went to Bulk Reef Supply, and I ordered another 100 pounds of Pucani rock. And that ran about $350. So I've spent a lot of money on rock. And then the final rock purchase is actually when I bought out my buddy's entire, or at least a friend at work's, entire aquarium. So he had a small nano cube that he was shutting down, probably about 25, 30 pounds of real live rock in there, and I bought all of that out, including his fish and everything, for $50. But you can see, rock is really expensive. And then I also have about 100 pounds of sand in this tank. And this is all the carob sea sugar sand, and it looks great. Problem with the sand is it collects detritus, and if you have good water flow in your tank, your pumps are going to blow it around. But I think it looks a lot better than a bare bottom, and that's the reason I use it. But there's 100 pounds of sand here. I don't remember the exact price, but I want to say it's about $25 for a 25-pound bag, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but I'll say there's at least $100 worth of sand in this tank. And now on to the clownfish. I've got 4 of them in this tank, and 2 of them are the ones that came with all of that live rock I've just purchased, and 2 I've purchased. So Nemo I purchased 9 years ago, and he was about $25. And of course I also have Kooky in this tank, who is the one that you see hosting the clam in some other videos, and he was about $25 as well. My mandarin I bought originally as a mated pair, and both the male and the female were eating mysis shrimp, and that's why I bought these guys, and I paid a lot of money for that. They cost me $100 for 2 of them. Now, that may sound like a lot for mandarins, but for a mated pair that was eating mysis shrimp, that seems like a pretty reasonable deal. Unfortunately, one of them has since perished, so I'm down to 1. Now my Bangai Cardinals, I've got 4 of them. These guys came from Live Aquaria. They were on sale, and they were about $15 a piece. My one spot blenny, I've got him locally at a local fish store, and he was 20 bucks. Love that fish. I've got 4 chromies in this tank. As you'll probably saw one of my last videos, I had 5, but the other one was eaten. And these guys run about $8-9 bucks a piece at my local fish store. I could get them a lot cheaper at Petco, but I tell you what, the quality at Animal Attractions is far better than Petco. My blue tang rinkins I've had for 2.5 years or so now, and he's about an $80 fish. And then of course there's my purple tang, which I got on an amazing sale, and I paid $100 for that fish. My yellow tang I've had for about 2 years, and I got him at an LFS, and he was about 45 bucks, but he's a big, beautiful, healthy yellow tang. There's also a Royal Gromma in the tank, and that was about a $20 fish. Love him, great, a little bit shy. And I've also got a clown goby in there, and an algae blenny or sailfin blenny, and he came with that same rock purchase that I mentioned earlier. My cleaner shrimp is about 30 bucks. Love this guy. He's always out where you can see him, except for when you're trying to make a video. And I love these guys, but 30 bucks for a shrimp seems like quite a lot, but he's definitely worth it. I've also got 2 of these red, white, and blue Linkia stars, and these guys were 12 bucks each. Then as far as cleanup crew goes, I've got a lot of stuff in here, and it's kind of difficult to video it all. But there are 4 of the emerald crabs, and those are good for eating algae, bubble algae, which is the main reason I got them. It just keeps that completely under control. And those guys were about 7 bucks a piece. Last time I bought peppermint shrimp, I bought 4 of them, and they were about 7 bucks a piece. And I really use them to kind of keep the aptasia down. If you guys are interested in using them for aptasia, what I recommend is get a lot of peppermint shrimp. I've tried it with one, doesn't work. You need multiples so that they're kind of competing more for food, and then they will attack the smaller aptasia. I also have a bunch of Nasserus snails, red leg, blue leg, hermit crabs, and I got most of those from Live Aquaria. I did one of the build your own reef tank or reef cleaner packs, and I spent about $80 last time I did it, and I also got some serpent stars in there and a couple of urchins and stuff like that, and they did fantastic. I love those things, and that's one of the products I actually think Live Aquaria does a great job on, is their build your own cleaner pack. And then there's my big long spine urchin. This guy was $30. Sorry for the lighting issues, but this is a Sabaean anemone. Clownfish absolutely love it, and it was free. I actually ordered a bubble anemone from Live Aquaria, and they sent me a Sabae. Bonus for me, since the Sabae has done great, and it's beautiful, and it was free. So the green mushroom you see that came in as a piece on a candy cane. So a candy cane coral is just attached to it, and they've started spreading all over the tank. The orange mushroom is one my wife had to have. That was 20 bucks. The giant green elephant ear mushroom you see, and you've seen in some of my other videos, he was 15 bucks. He was about a quarter that size when I bought him, and he has just grown enormously. My clam was free, another screw up from Live Aquaria. This Singulara leather is part of that $50 reef tank buyout I did. This big giant colt you see was free. Got him from an LFS. Actually, it'd be the same one I brought my squamosa from years ago. And when I got him, he was probably closer in size to this little offshoot you see. He was a little tiny thing. Didn't look like much, so the guy just threw him in. Well, you can see what happens 2.5, 3 years later. They get big and beautiful. Then, of course, there's what I like to call Big Rock Candy Mountain. And that's... Originally, there were a lot of candy canes on this, but they've kind of been overran by this point. There's still a couple of them in there, and each of those frags are about 15 bucks. And you can see more of those green mushrooms I was talking about. Those all came off of one of these candy canes, and they're kind of spreading all over the tank. The zinnia are all part of my original $10 zinnia frag I bought, maybe $20. And then all of the zoas you see, when the fish crew in Fort Collins opened up, they had a 0 section frag, which were $2.50 frags. So I bought a whole bunch of that stuff. And all of these have grown from one $2.50 frag. And then you can see here's another candy cane that was a $15 piece. The Gorg, that was $15. That leather, the little guy you see on the bottom, that's an $8 piece. That's just kind of grown. He's doing great. This huge Singulara leather is one I bought at the same time I bought my squamosa. And when I bought him, he was a lot closer in size to this guy, probably smaller than that. And he's just grown that much in the last 2.5 years. So 45 bucks for him. This big stony island I've created is actually relatively inexpensive. All of this orange Monipora you see on here started from two $10 frags. So very inexpensive, and it grows fast and it looks beautiful. The brown Digi you see in the middle came from a bigger piece of Digitata, which eventually broke when I was trying to install everything. And it's in decline right now. I don't know why it's dying off. You can see at one point in time it was having great growth, and now it's not doing so well. Not sure why. I'm not too worried about it, as I think the orange Monipora is going to take over it anyways. And then I've got 3 mini maxi carbon anemones in this tank, and I got those from Live Aquaria, and to be honest, the size, they were 15 bucks a piece. I'm not real thrilled with them, but I guess it's okay. And then I've got another Monipora in back there. It's had a bit of a health issue lately because the colt coral was growing into it, so I fragged half of it off of there. And that guy was $45. And then there is a frog spawn that I've kind of glued up in the middle of that, and I think that looks really cool. The picture you see here just doesn't do it justice compared to what it looks like in real life. And that guy was about 15 bucks. The toadstool leather you see here is not open currently, but that's a $40 toadstool. The big Monipora capricornus you see behind it, that is a $50 piece. I bought it from a local fish store, and they said they just started with a little frag and it grew out in their frag tank, so they sold it to me for a pretty good price. The pink bird's nest is struggling. That's the one I got from Live Aquaria where they screwed up the order. So between that one and that one, they both cost $80 combined. They sent me the little guy to begin with, and I complained that it was tiny compared to what they said it was, so they sent me the big one, which was awesome, but neither one of them's doing great in my tank. The orange Monty in back is doing great. $15 piece. Love it. And then I've got 2 Duncan's colonies back there. The little one up front I've bought a few months ago for about 20 bucks. The big one in back is a colony that I bought a couple years ago. It was 3 heads and has grown out nicely. And then up on top, all of this stuff on this rock is off of frags of other stuff I have in the tank. The potato chip corals were $20 and $25, and they're doing fantastic. This guy here, this Monty, is a frag off of the other big piece you've seen, and it is struggling. Don't ask me why the location makes such a difference. It used to do great there, now it's not. It may have something to do with this acro that I just moved in next to it. This is a green slimer, believe it or not, but you can see it's got some good STNing going on. Very disappointing, but I've had issues with acros in the past. They're just really hard, and he was 30 bucks. The big red Monty you see is what's grown out of a little tiny frag over a couple of years, and he was like 10 bucks. The bird's nest you see up here, he was a $15 frag that's grown out pretty well. The acro is part of my Bright Fiji acro pack, and it's only doing okay, and he is of course free because of the failures of Live Aquaria. The big bird's nest you see in back is a nice green bird's nest, and there are three $15 pieces kind of intertwined to make one big piece. And then there's my big green brain coral. He was $60 and has been flawless. And then these guys here I just recently purchased. They are green bird's nest, but they have a lot of polyp extension, and that's why I got those guys. Animal Attractions had them in one of their display tanks, and Aaron was nice enough to frag a few pieces off, so those 3 pieces he charged me 15 bucks for. Can't beat that. Little Possilopora back there was a $5, and then that big Monty Cullen you see, that was 80 bucks at Animal Attractions. Those guys, they just always hook me up. It's fantastic. And then this green hammer I purchased because it's the full green hammer. It's not the kind of purpling green. It is green on green. A little rare, a little more expensive, and that frag was 25 bucks. My cup coral, this is the only one I have left, and it is struggling, and I'm sure the anemone sitting next to it does not help, and he was $50. The anemone behind him was $89, and he's been in this tank for 2.5 years. He's had a pretty good up and down success rate in this tank. He's smaller than when I bought him 2.5 years ago, but he's still there, still doing okay. And there's also a little porcelain crab living in there. Love that guy. He's been in there just as long as the anemone, and he was $20. Behind him, they're a little hard to see, there's some green zoas or pallies, and that frag was about $15, and it's been a real slow grower. So, my Euphyllia garden. We've got lots of different stuff in here. This green hammer on the bottom right, when I got him, he was originally 2 heads. He's more like 6 heads now, and he was $40. Nice bright green. The big wall hammer in the middle I got at the local Reef show, and he was $50. This frog spawn you see, kind of hiding behind my urchin, he was $15. He's more than doubled in size since I've got him. Also, this hammer and the hammer right behind him, I purchased at the same time. Both of those were 15 bucks, and the color on those guys is fantastic. So, even though they were small, I knew they would grow, and the color was awesome on them. I bought this guy years ago, paid way too much for him, and he was 50 bucks, and he was a quarter that big when I bought him. And then I've got 2 frog spawns up here. Both of them are about 3 heads, and they're doing pretty well. These frog spawns don't seem to like the water flow as much as some of the others. I'm finding Euphyllias tend to pull in a lot more when the water flow is going. Some like it more than others, and those 2 were 30 bucks a piece. The Zoa colony back there I got years ago. I want to say it was a $5 frag. And then of course there's the big gold hammer, and he was $160 if I remember correctly. really expensive coral. My devil's hand leather isn't looking his best right now because he's being stabbed by an urchin, but he'll be fine. No issues there. They're used to it. He was $70. He's a big, beautiful thing. When I bought him, he was a lot more green in coloration, more greenish brown. Now he is more of a pink color. That's just what lighting does to corals. You never know what they're going to turn into. My pineapple brain, it's slowly dying. That guy was, I want to say $70 on Live Aquaria. He looked pretty good when he came in, and he's just been declining over the last year or so. My maze brain, my purple maze brain, this guy was $90. When I first got him, he just continued to decline and decline and decline. And he's stopped declining. He's been like this for about 2 years now. I'm a little worried about the zoa growth around him. I might have to start trying to control some of that a little better. But so far, he's actually stopped declining and started to actually grow a little back over the old skeleton. So he's actually doing okay. And then you can see all of the zoas in here and the mushrooms. And this mushroom rock is a piece I bought at the same time I bought my squamosa about 2.5, 3 years ago now. And my wife had to have it. The mushrooms at the time that were on there were huge. They were probably 6 inches apart. Now they're kind of small, and there's some others in other places in the tank. But at the same time, I bought all of those green $2.50 zoas. That's when I bought these guys. And they have just taken over everything in this section. So you've got a frag that was $2.50 that's produced this and all of that. And this was also another $2.50 frag. And then there is also a green fabia back there, which also had a big decline about the same time I set my 210 up. I think most of these, the pineapple brain and the fabia, I located too high in the tank and just fried them, and they just haven't recovered. The green fabia has stopped declining, but I don't think it'll ever be its former glory. And he was about $50. And then, of course, we've got the big squamosa. And I bought that guy as a real little clam. And he was $45 when I bought him. Can't imagine what one of those costs now, but I gotta imagine something that big would be between $100 and $200. Just a guess. The big green bubble coral has done great in this tank. He's been in here about a year, and he was $80. The big gorgonia, see? $15. Love it. All of this purple stuff, I believe, is encrusting gorgonia. It seems to be pretty much the same stuff as star polyps. All of that has grown from $1 to $2.50 frag. And then, of course, the green star polyps, they came on that rock that I got when I bought out the tank from my friend at work. And then there's a little small frag up there of polyps for $2.50. Now, I'm sure you guys are hearing all these $2.50 frag prices and getting a bit jealous. Well, those were the good old days. They don't sell them that cheap anymore.
So everything added up, we're looking at about $3,600 for all the livestock, rock, water, everything to fill that tank. Yeah, it added up to a lot more than I thought. And then you add that to the equipment and everything else, totals about $8,400 for everything. And that number doesn't include a lot of the stuff that I've lost, right? Because I've lost a lot of stuff. I've been reefing for 9 years. So over the last 9 years, I couldn't imagine the total amount of money I've spent. I've had my 90 gallon, I've had a 29 gallon before that. So yeah, I've spent a small fortune. So anyways, thanks for watching this episode of Mile High Reefers. I'll see you on the next one. If you like what I do, hit the like button. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I strongly recommend you do. Thanks again for watching.